Hello and welcome to this episode of the Recruitment Podcast, where we celebrate academic recruitment and bring education to everyone. Today, we're taking a deep dive into the evolving world of HR and what you can expect in 2025. We've got two insightful articles to guide us. The first is from Human Resource Executive tackling the biggest challenges that HR teams will face. The second is a sponsored piece focusing on the school's first approach to talent management. It's going to be a fascinating journey, so buckle up. We're going to explore some intriguing shifts, like how CEOs are seemingly prioritizing growth over employee well-being. We'll also tackle the trough of disillusionment surrounding AI, a reality check after all the initial hype. And of course, we can't ignore the looming labor shortage and skills mismatch that's keeping HR professionals up at night. To help us navigate this complex landscape, we've got a fantastic expert joining us, someone with deep expertise in HR trends and strategic workforce planning. Welcome. So glad to have you with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's definitely a pivotal time for HR, and these topics are top of mind for everyone in the field.
Absolutely. Let's jump right in. One of the first things that struck me in the Human Resource Executive article was this shift in CEO priorities. It seems like growth is taking center stage even at the expense of employee well-being. The article cites a Gartner survey revealing that a significant number of CEOs now prioritize growth over other concerns. This is quite a jump from previous years. What's driving this intense focus on growth, and what does it mean for HR?
You're right to point out that shift. It reflects the current economic climate and the pressures CEOs are facing. What's interesting is that this hyper-focus on growth is the strongest it's been in over a decade. Now, while growth is essential for any organization, this shift away from workforce well-being does send a clear signal to HR leaders.
That's an important observation. So how should HR professionals adapt their strategies in light of this CEO mindset? What should our listeners be considering as they navigate this change?
The key is to ensure that HR goals are directly aligned with those growth objectives. It's about demonstrating how HR initiatives can directly contribute to the bottom line. For instance, if a CEO is laser-focused on rapid expansion, HR might prioritize streamlining the hiring process or developing programs to quickly onboard new employees and get them up to speed.
It sounds like HR needs to think less about internal improvements and more about initiatives that directly support growth.
Precisely. It's not that internal improvements aren't important, but they need to be framed within the context of how they support the CEO's overarching goals. For example, a CEO might prioritize rapid hiring and onboarding to fuel productivity gains, while HR might be focused on improving internal processes like time-saving measures for managers. Both are valuable, but if the CEO is all about growth, those time-saving measures might not be seen as directly contributing to that objective.
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in our own HR world and lose sight of the bigger picture. It's a good reminder for all of us to step back and see how our work connects to the organization's strategic goals, especially in a climate where growth is paramount. Now let's move on to another important topic. The Human Resource Executive article also highlighted the growing disillusionment surrounding AI. Despite the initial hype, many organizations are hitting roadblocks when it comes to implementation. The article even uses the term trough of disillusionment to describe this phase. What's causing this disillusionment, and why isn't AI living up to the initial expectations?
Well, the hype surrounding AI was certainly at a fever pitch and expectations were sky high, but the reality of implementation is often more complex than the glossy brochures suggest. Organizations are encountering a range of challenges, from a lack of employee skills to grapple with these new technologies, to messy data that's difficult to analyze. There's also a shortage of best practices and a general sense of fatigue when it comes to adopting new technology. People are constantly being asked to adapt, and it can be overwhelming.
So it's a combination of technical hurdles, data challenges, and even human factors like change fatigue contributing to this disillusionment. What practical advice would you give to HR leaders who are feeling stuck in this trough of disillusionment? How can they move forward with AI integration in a realistic and effective way?
The key is to approach AI integration strategically and thoughtfully with a strong emphasis on change management. Don't just focus on the technology itself. Take the time to assess your organization's readiness, identify potential roadblocks, and address those proactively. For instance, if you know there are skills gaps within your workforce, invest in training and development programs to equip your employees with the knowledge they need to work effectively with AI, and just as importantly, manage expectations. Be realistic about what AI can and cannot do. It's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet that will instantly solve all your problems.
That's sound advice. Under-promise and over-deliver is always a good motto, especially when it comes to new technologies. Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about another pressing issue facing HR, the turbulent labor market of 2025. The statistics in the Human Resource Executive article are quite alarming, to say the least.
Yes, the future labor market presents some significant challenges that HR needs to be prepared for.
The article paints a stark picture. By 2030, we're looking at a staggering number of unfilled jobs globally, and a significant percentage of current jobs will undergo substantial changes in the next few years, requiring new skills and adaptations. On top of that, candidates are becoming increasingly selective, only considering jobs that meet their specific requirements. It's a demanding and ever-changing landscape. What can HR professionals do to navigate this complex environment and ensure their organizations are prepared for these challenges?
You're right, the traditional playbook needs an update. Simply focusing on filling open positions won't cut it in this environment. HR needs to adopt a more proactive and strategic approach, moving beyond traditional headcount planning to embrace what's called strategic workforce planning.
That's a term I've heard before, but could you break it down for our listeners? What does strategic workforce planning entail, and how does it differ from traditional headcount planning?
Strategic workforce planning is like creating a roadmap for your future workforce. It's about anticipating future talent needs and proactively developing a plan to meet those needs. It involved analyzing your organization's long-term goals, identifying critical skills and roles, and then developing a plan to acquire, develop, and retain the talent you need to achieve those pros. It's a data-driven approach that takes into account factors like projected growth, industry trends, technological advancements, and even demographic shifts.
So it's not just about filling current vacancies, but looking ahead and proactively shaping your workforce to align with the organization's future direction.
Exactly. It's about being proactive rather than reactive. For example, instead of just focusing on hiring for existing open roles, you might analyze future trends and realize that certain skills will be in high demand in the coming years. You can then prioritize developing those skills within your current workforce through training programs or targeted recruitment efforts.
So it's about taking a more holistic and forward-thinking approach to talent management. That makes a lot of sense, especially in a market as dynamic and unpredictable as the one we're facing.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that strategic workforce planning isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that needs to be regularly revisited and adjusted based on changing circumstances.
It sounds like flexibility and adaptability are key in this new world of work. Now, given this turbulent labor market, I'm curious about talent acquisition in particular. Is it even possible to find the right people with all these unfilled jobs and evolving skills? What strategies should organizations be employing?
It's definitely a challenge, but not an insurmountable one. The key is to recognize that we can't rely solely on external hiring or internal development. A successful talent acquisition strategy will require a blended approach, what's often referred to as a buy and build strategy.
Interesting. Could you elaborate on what that entails?
A buy and build strategy means striking a balance between bringing in fresh talent from the external market while simultaneously investing in upskilling and reskilling your existing workforce. It's about recognizing that you may not be able to find all the skills you need readily available in the market, so you need to cultivate them internally as well. This requires a collaborative approach between talent acquisition, talent management, and learning and development teams. They need to work together to identify skill gaps, develop targeted training programs, and create opportunities for internal mobility and advancement.
So it's about breaking down silos and fostering a more integrated approach to talent management.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that talent acquisition isn't just about filling open positions. It's about strategically building a workforce that can adapt and thrive in a constantly changing environment.
That's a powerful perspective. Now, speaking of shaking things up, our sponsored article introduces a fascinating concept: the skills-first approach to talent management. I'm intrigued. Could you tell us more about what that means and why it's gaining traction?
This is where things get really interesting. The skills-first approach represents a fundamental shift in how we think about work and talent. It moves away from our traditional obsession with job titles and degrees and instead focuses on the specific skills needed to get work done effectively.
So instead of saying, I need to hire a marketing manager, you would say, I need someone with expertise in content creation, social media marketing, and data analytics.
You got it. It's about breaking down work into its core components, the skills required to achieve specific outcomes, and the benefits of this approach are significant.
I'm eager to hear more about those benefits, but unfortunately we're out of time for this segment of our deep dive. We'll be back in part 2 to delve deeper into the skills-first approach and its implications for the future of work. But before we go, I want to remind our listeners that you can view all higher ed jobs in your field at academicjobs.com. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore how a skills-first approach can transform your organization and help you navigate the challenges of the evolving world of work.
Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into the future of HR. Before the break, we were starting to unpack the fascinating concept of a skills-first approach to talent management.
Yes, this idea really piqued my interest. You mentioned some significant benefits associated with this approach. Can you elaborate on what those are and why this shift is gaining so much momentum?
Absolutely. One of the most compelling benefits of a skills-first approach is that it enables organizations to become much more agile and responsive to change. Today's rapidly evolving business landscape, agility is essential for survival, let alone success. When you focus on skills rather than rigid job titles, you can quickly identify individuals with the capabilities needed to tackle new challenges and pivot to meet changing demands. You're no longer limited by traditional organizational structures or preconceived notions of who should be doing what.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about leveraging the full potential of your workforce and deploying talent strategically based on skills, rather than being constrained by outdated job descriptions.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that individuals often possess a wider range of skills than their current job title might suggest. By focusing on skills, you can unlock that hidden potential and create a more dynamic and adaptable workforce.
So it's about seeing your employees not just for the roles they currently occupy, but for the full spectrum of their skills and capabilities.
Precisely. And this leads to another key benefit: enhanced productivity. When you match skills to tasks more effectively, you're naturally going to see improved results. People are engaged in work that aligns with their strengths and interests, which leads to greater motivation, higher quality output, and ultimately a more productive workforce.
It's about putting the right people in the right roles where they can truly excel.
Yes, and there's an interesting side effect of this skills-focused approach that's particularly relevant in today's world. It can actually boost diversity and inclusion within organizations.
Now, that's something I wouldn't have necessarily expected. Could you explain how a focus on skills leads to greater diversity?
Traditionally, hiring decisions have often been based on factors like degrees, job titles, and years of experience. While these can be indicators of competence, they can also perpetuate existing biases and limit opportunities for individuals from underrepresented groups who may not have had access to the same educational or career pathways. When you shift the focus to skills, you open up the talent pool to a much wider range of candidates, including those who might not have the perfect resume, but possess the skills and potential to thrive.
So it's about recognizing talent and potential that might have been overlooked in the past.
Exactly. It's about creating a more equitable and inclusive workplace where individuals are valued for their capabilities regardless of their background or traditional credentials. And this leads to a more diverse and innovative workforce, which ultimately benefits everyone.
This all sounds incredibly promising, but I can imagine it also requires a significant shift in mindset and processes for organizations. How do you actually go about implementing a skills-first approach in a real-world setting? It sounds great in theory, but what are the practical steps involved?
You're right, it's not just about flipping a switch, it requires a deliberate and structured approach. The sponsored article we mentioned earlier actually outlines a 4-step roadmap to guide organizations through this transition.
That's helpful. Could you walk us through those 4 steps?
Of course. The first step is to create or enhance your skills taxonomy.
Now, for those of our listeners who might not be familiar with that term, could you explain what a skills taxonomy is and why it's so crucial in a skills-first approach?
A skills taxonomy is essentially a structured framework that defines and categorizes all the skills relevant to your organization. It's like a comprehensive inventory of all the capabilities needed to achieve your strategic objectives. It provides a common language for talking about skills, ensuring everyone is on the same page and using consistent terminology. Without a clear and well-defined skills taxonomy, the entire skills-first approach falls apart. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built.
So it's about establishing a shared understanding of what different skills mean within the context of your organization and how they relate to different roles and tasks.
Precisely. It's about creating a common framework for identifying, assessing, and developing skills.
That makes sense. So once you have your skills taxonomy in place, what's the next step in the roadmap?
Step 2 is all about managing your new taxonomy. This involves ensuring that skills data is consistently defined, accurately captured, and effectively utilized across all your systems and processes. This is where technology can play a crucial role.
You mentioned technology earlier. Can you elaborate on what kind of technology can support this management of skills data?
Absolutely. There are powerful AI-powered tools that can automate many of the manual tasks associated with managing a skills taxonomy. For example, there are skills inference engines that can automatically extract skills data from various sources like resumes, job descriptions, and even social media profiles. These tools use natural language processing and machine learning algorithms to identify skills that might not be explicitly stated, saving HR countless hours of manual data entry.
So it's about leveraging technology to make the process of managing skills data more efficient and accurate.
Exactly. Technology can help us move away from clunky spreadsheets and manual processes, allowing us to focus on the strategic aspects of talent management.
Now, once you've defined your skills taxonomy and you have systems in place to manage that data effectively, what's the next step in implementing a skills-first approach?
Step 3 is all about actioning those valuable skills insights. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's about using the skills data you've gathered to make informed decisions about talent acquisition, development, and deployment.
Can you give us some specific examples of how organizations can action these skills insights?
Certainly, one key area is learning and development. By analyzing skills data, you can identify skills gaps within your organization and develop targeted training programs to upskill or reskill your workforce. You can create personalized learning pathways that cater to individual needs and aspirations, helping employees develop the skills they need to advance their careers and contribute to the organization's success.
So it's about moving away from generic training programs and towards a more personalized and targeted approach to development based on individual skills and career goals.
Precisely. Another area where skills insights can be invaluable is talent acquisition. By understanding the skills landscape within your organization and the skills that will be in demand in the future, you can target your recruitment efforts more effectively. You can focus on attracting individuals with the specific skills you need rather than casting a wide net and hoping for the best.
It's about being more strategic and deliberate in your talent acquisition efforts using data to inform your decisions.
Exactly. And this leads to another important application of skills insights: internal mobility. By having a clear understanding of the skills and aspirations of your current workforce, you can create opportunities for internal mobility and advancement. You can connect employees with projects, gigs, and even full-time roles that align with their skills and interests, fostering a culture of growth and development within your organization.
It sounds like a win-win situation. Employees get opportunities to grow and expand their skill sets, and the organization benefits from having a more engaged, motivated, and adaptable workforce.
Precisely. It's about creating a more dynamic and fluid talent ecosystem where skills are the currency of opportunity.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but we're nearing the end of part 2 of our deep dive. Before we move on to the final segment, can you remind us of the fourth and final step in the roadmap to implementing a skills-first approach?
Of course. The fourth and final step is all about connecting the rest of your ecosystem. This involves ensuring that your skills data is integrated and flows seamlessly across all your talent technology systems.
So we're talking about breaking down those silos we mentioned earlier and creating a more holistic and integrated approach to talent management.
Exactly. Your skills data needs to be accessible and actionable across all your systems, from your applicant tracking system to your learning management system to your internal talent marketplace. This creates a single source of truth for skills data, ensuring that everyone is working with the same information and making decisions based on a shared understanding of the skills landscape.
It sounds like this integration is crucial for ensuring the success of a skills-first approach.
Absolutely. Without that integration, you risk creating data silos and inefficiencies that can undermine your efforts.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation so far, but we're out of time for this segment. In the final part of our deep dive, we'll explore the role of technology in enabling a skills-first approach and discuss how organizations can leverage these tools to build a more agile, productive, and future-proof workforce. But before we go, I want to remind our listeners that you can view all higher ed jobs in your field at academicjobs.com. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll delve deeper into the exciting world of skills-based talent management. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the future of HR in 2025. We've discussed some major shifts, like the CEO focus on growth over well-being and the trough of disillusionment with AI. And of course, we've delved into the skills-first approach, which seems to be a potential solution to many of these challenges. Now it's time to talk about the role of technology in making this all happen.
Absolutely. Technology is the backbone of a successful skills-first approach. It's what enables us to gather, analyze, and actually use skills data effectively. Without the right tools, we'd be drowning in spreadsheets and manual processes, unable to keep up with the speed of change.
So what kind of technology are we talking about here? What should HR leaders be prioritizing when it comes to their tech stack?
There's a whole ecosystem of solutions out there, but some key players are crucial for a skills-first organization. These include skills inference engines, talent marketplaces, learning experience platforms, LXPs, and of course, a robust HRIS system that can act as the central hub for all your skills data.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. Let's start with skills inference engines. What exactly are they and how do they work?
Imagine you have a mountain of resumes, job descriptions, performance reviews, maybe even social media profiles. A skills inference engine is like an AI-powered detective that can sift through all that information and automatically extract relevant skills data.
So it goes beyond just keyword matching. It can understand the nuances of language and identify skills that might not be explicitly stated.
Precisely. It uses natural language processing and machine learning to decipher context and infer skills based on experience, projects, and even the way someone describes their accomplishments. It can also identify adjacent skills, meaning skills that are closely related to someone's existing skill set and could be easily acquired with the right training.
That's fascinating. It's like uncovering hidden potential within your workforce. So once we've captured all this skills data using these inference engines, what do we do with it? How do we make it actionable?
That's where the talent marketplace comes in. It's an internal platform that connects employees with opportunities based on their skills and interests. Think of it as an internal job board, but instead of focusing on traditional job titles, it's all about matching skills to projects, gigs, or even full-time roles.
So it empowers employees to explore opportunities that might not have been on their radar before. And it helps managers find the right talent for specific projects, even if those individuals sit outside their immediate team.
Exactly. It breaks down silos and creates a more dynamic and fluid talent ecosystem. Employees can actively manage their careers and seek out opportunities that align with their aspirations, while managers have access to a wider pool of talent to draw from.
It sounds like a win-win for everyone involved. Now let's talk about learning experience platforms. How do they fit into the skills-first picture?
LXPs are all about facilitating continuous learning and development. They provide employees with personalized learning pathways based on their individual skills, goals, and interests.
So it's a far cry from the old school approach of generic training programs that everyone had to sit through, regardless of their individual needs.
Exactly. LXPs curate content from a variety of sources, and they use algorithms to recommend courses, articles, videos, or even mentorships that are specifically relevant to each employee's development goals. They can also track progress, provide feedback, and even gamify the learning experience to make it more engaging and motivating.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about making learning more personalized, accessible, and relevant, which ultimately leads to better outcomes. Now, finally, let's talk about the HRIS. What role does it play in a skills-first organization?
The HRIS is the central nervous system of your talent ecosystem. It's where all your employee data, including skills data, is stored and managed. In a skills-first organization, the HRIS needs to be able to integrate with all the other talent tech solutions we've been discussing. It should connect seamlessly with your skills inference engine, your talent marketplace, your LXP, and any other relevant systems.
So it's about creating a unified view of the skills landscape within your organization, ensuring that everyone is working with the same information and making decisions based on a shared understanding of the data.
Exactly. A modern integrated HRIS is essential for making a skills-first approach truly effective. It provides the foundation for data-driven decision-making, strategic workforce planning, and personalized talent development.
This has been an incredibly insightful exploration of the future of HR and the power of a skills-first approach. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, the world of work is changing rapidly, and the skills-first approach is here to stay. So embrace the change, invest in the right technology, and prepare to unlock the full potential of your workforce. And don't forget you can view all higher ed jobs in your field at academicjobs.com. Until next time, keep those skills sharp.